wrestling and cross country and track and field coaches, both, like I said, at high school and in the colleges. And along the way, as we have these conversations, names come up and people mention different people. And Jimmy and I talk about it and be like, hey, that would be a pretty cool guest to have. And we'll mention our through line to you, how your name came up in here in a little bit. But yeah, like I mentioned, there's a couple things in life that bring Jimmy and I together. One of them being wrestling, one of them being track and field and cross country, and the other one is our love for stand-up comedy. So you kind of bring two of those things together, and so
absolutely.
we thought it'd be a great opportunity to have a conversation with you and hear about your story, your journey from high school to college to track and field to coaching, and how you got into stand-up comedy.
All right.
Cool. Ladies and gentlemen, howdy and aloha. Welcome to another episode of Airey Bros Radio. We are here, you are there, and we appreciate you tuning in. Tonight we're stepping back onto the track and onto the stage with the true original. The one and only Brad Upton is joining us this evening. But before we get rolling, you all know the drill. Please make sure you like this episode and all episode of Airey Bros Radio on YouTube. Drop a comment, every view, review, and share helps us grow and give back to the sports we love. Follow us on Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. This episode, as always, is fueled by Black Sheep Endurance for all your ultramarathon coaching and nutrition coaching needs. And let's not forget why we do this. We're over here at Airey Bros to shine a light on the program's coaches and mentors we wish we had access to growing up. If you or someone you know is looking for the right fit at the next level or the inspiration to chase their dreams, please share this episode with them. On to tonight's guest. Brad Upton is joining us. As I mentioned, he's a former Division I and high school track and field coach who placed athletes in the NCAA Finals, the Olympic trials, coaching from Pasco High School to the University of Washington. He's a 37-year stand-up comedy veteran, went viral in 2018 with his dry bar comedy special, now with 200 million plus views online. He's open for Johnny Mathis, Joan Rivers, Dolly Parton, and performs regularly at the Grand Ole Opry. From a fourth grade teacher and hurdle coach to comedy legend, Brad's story is the blueprint for trusting your gut and going all in on your passion. Without further ado, Brad Upton, it is an honor and a pleasure to have you joining us this evening. We do greatly appreciate your time. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you asking me.
Absolutely. We're honored to have you. We're honored to chat with you and hear about your cool story.
Track and comedy is what you guys like, and I'm in a pretty small niche of people, so
yeah,
I'm glad you found me.
Absolutely. And, we kind of like to consider ourselves in a pretty small niche here, too, where we cover sports like cross country and track and field, but we also cover wrestling, which some people fall in both of those barrels, but a lot of times it's very niche. So, we'll bring our niche with your niche, and we'll have a great conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we get too far into it, Brad, if you have anything coming up, anything you would like to plug or promote, anything where you want us to send the fans on social media, any of that stuff, any shows, any tours, the floor is yours.
July 5th and 6th, I am in Portland and Seattle it's all on my website at bradupton.com, and I have a couple of dates later on in Edmonds and Woodinville, Washington, which are all right around where I live. I can drive to all of these things. I'm going to fill up my August, September, October, November soon. I took some time off. I had my knee replaced in March, so I took some time off, and now I'm just getting back into it. So I don't have a lot of specific dates right now, but my calendar will fill up in the next probably 3 weeks.
All right. Well, if we can, let's get you down here to Greenville, South Carolina at the Comedy Zone. We'd love to come see you.
Oh, yeah. I've been down there before. I think I've been to Greenville.
Yeah, it's a nice little club. It's
yeah. I'd like to get back there.
Yeah, I wish I knew someone over there I could get you set up, but we'd love to come see you. How's the knee recovery?
It's doing pretty well. I had some buyer's remorse for a few weeks, but I'm starting to see, it's a little over 3 months, so I'm starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I've been walking. I can walk fine. And then yesterday I told my wife, I'm going to try and run here just a little tiny bit. And it worked all right. I've got as much range of motion as you can hope for. So.
Okay. Still doing PT, or are you all finished with that?
My last one is this Thursday. Then I'm done. Yeah.
Awesome. How's any scarring or anything like that?
Oh, I got a gigantic scar.
Yeah.
Gigantic. Here, let's do this right now. Here you go.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Brad, was that wear and tear or was that a sudden injury?
Yeah, I had
He's a
part of the
hurdler.
cartilage taken out when I was between my junior and senior year in high school, and then I competed on it for 17 more years, and then I trained hard and into my 40s. I just trained like I was still competing, and then I had a little more of the cartilage taken out when I turned 50. Yeah, it was wear and tear, but I had a couple of knee surgeries, and then it was just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And I went, I got to do something about this. The left one is fine. I'll never have to do anything to the left one.
Is that your lead leg or your trail leg?
That is my lead leg.
Okay. Okay.
But the
So,
trail leg's got to come up tight into your body when you go over a hurdle, and I just can't bend it enough. I can't get my heel in close to my butt. So I've been over a hurdle every year up until this spring. I went over them last year. I still hurdled in practice, so a little bit, not fast, but I can still get over them.
Nice.
did you coach this spring?
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
I got 2 girls into the state meet.
nice.
Congratulations.
Yeah. It's hard to get kids into the state meet. I mean, it's pretty, in the whole state, there are only 16 kids get in. And I got 2 of them in the 100 hurdles and 1 in the 300 hurdles.
Okay. Now you're in Washington, correct?
Yes.
So, yeah. How many divisions do they have for the state in Washington?
1A, 2A, probably 7, I'm guessing. 7.
Wow.
There's little tiny, tiny schools. I don't,
Yeah.
really small schools. And then 1A, 2A, 3A. I think there's 7 divisions.
Wow. Okay.
And we're in AAA, so that's the second to the largest.
Okay. How
Yeah.
many students in the school are we talking about? 1,000?
Oh, yeah, more than that,
More than
probably.
that.
I'm guessing 1,200 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I know.
Brad, so we like to do through lines, let our audience know how we've come to know our guests, how they came on our radar. And we
Right.
had Coach Hoyt from Azusa Pacific. He was
Yeah,
on
Jack
on
Hoyt.
the show, and he was talking about, we asked him kind of how he runs his program and how he's run it throughout the years. And he brought you up that, you were someone who coached hurdles for him and you were a stand-up comedian and how that kind of worked. And Rich and I's kind of ears perked up and was like,
Right.
stand-up comedian. And minute we got done, I looked you up and I was like, Rich, we got to have him on. And we just had Mick Betancourt on probably about 2 months ago. He's another comedian that we love. We love his writing and stuff that he does. But we've also had Brant Tobler on the podcast
Right.
as well. So anytime we have an opportunity to get a comic on, we're going to do our best to try
You
to
better get Greg Warren. Have you had Greg Warren?
trying hard.
You can put in a good word for us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a great guy.
He is.
Yeah.
A great act.
Yeah.
Got a bunch of funny wrestling
Oh
material too.
yeah. Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah, some good stuff that hits home. Some of his doctor's office bits about checking his weight at the doctor's office.
Right.
I won't. So you were you taught, but you were also for a long time coached and were touring, right? So how did
I did my very first open mic in 1984. I was 28 years old. That's kind of old to start comedy, but I was living in Pasco, Washington, a long ways from any comedy. And I went and did an open mic in Seattle and went really well. And then I started performing as much as possible, which was hard to do where I was living. But I was coaching at the time. I graduated in 1979, went right to work as a 4th grade teacher and a high school track coach. And then for a couple of years, I was doing both when I first started stand-up. And then I quit in 86 to do comedy full-time. And I've been doing stand-up full-time ever since. But I always coached because I liked it. I always coached on the side. There was several years, about 6, where I was still competing and doing stand up. I used to tell people I was the best hurdler comedian in the world because I'm pretty sure I was the only one. But I was competing and doing stand up at the same time, and I've always coached on the side. I've always enjoyed it. Every spring I have those hurdlers that I work with, and sometimes I turn down gigs if it's a big meet and I want to be there. So that's kind of how I've been stuck with it ever since. And every year I think I'm going to quit, and then I get a freshman that's pretty good, and I go, oh, I got to see this one all the way through till they graduate.
So,
So, how much, sorry, Rich, how
mm,
much did being an athlete and being a coach help you for just the grind of stand-up comedy, doing the open mics, the rejection, having people not pay attention to you or boo you, and then having a, all right, I gotta go do this again, or oh, I gotta go find another open mic. Do you think being an athlete, being a hurler, that helped you for your stand-up comedy?
Absolutely. It's the work ethic and the mental process of it too, the mental toughness, the way you face things. It absolutely helped me, I think, being an athlete. I learned right away when I first started, because a lot of times when you start in comedy, you do these competitions and you're competing against which is weird that you're competing in comedy, but that's what you do. And watching these other comedians freak out about the other comics. You know what I mean? They're all looking around at the other comedians. What are they going to say? What are they going to wear? What are they going to do? And I remember right away, I was one of my earlier competitions. I was like, you can't worry about these other people. You only can worry about yourself. And I took that directly from track. You know, when you're standing at the starting line and you're looking down at 10 hurdles in front of you, 10 hurdles right there. Yes, you're racing the guys on each side of you. You are racing the guys on each side of you, but you have to execute those 10 hurdles perfectly. And then the guys on each side of you, that'll take care of itself. And I recognized that when I was in a comedy competition right away. I'm like, I can't worry about these other guys. All I can do is worry about me, execute my set, and everything else will take care of itself. So right away that paid off. But yeah, the grind, the work ethic, and not getting down and getting back up every time, huge difference.
well, Brad, I heard you talk about your lack of success in high school early on in baseball that kind of led you to your career in track and field with that origin story. And then you got right into teaching and coaching right out of college. What led you to stand-up comedy, and what made you decide that you wanted to do an open mic? Did you do like theater and things like that in school or anything, or
No,
were you
not
just
at all.
like the class clown?
No, not even the class clown.
Okay.
I was just drawn to it. You know, back when I was in high school in the 70s, the only place you ever saw comedy was on the Johnny Carson show. So I was always drawn to stand-ups. I really liked them. And as I got older and uh, into college, I thought, I want to try that. I kind of want to, I think I can do that. I want to try it. But this was late 70s, early 80s, and it was like, where do you learn? Where do you go? And then comedy really started to take off about 1979, 80. All of a sudden, there was this boom where it was spreading all over the country. And I didn't have the guts to try it. I was scared to do it. And it took me until I was 28 years old. I was writing the whole time, though. I thought, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. So I was writing in notebooks stuff that I thought was funny. And then I thought, you're not getting any younger, so you better try this. And I did it at 28, and I quit teaching at 30.
Do you remember what your first joke at that first open mic was?
Ah, yeah, I made fun of the MC that had just, well, there was a mass murder in, this is a good premise for a joke, but there was a mass murder in Seattle in 1983 in a gambling casino. These Asian guys robbed this poker game, and they killed 13 people and took all their money. And then a year later, they had caught two of these guys, and one of them was still on the lam. And the guy that brought me up that night was Arnold Mukai. He was a local Japanese comedian, and they were trying to find him. They thought they were about to capture him, and I went on stage. I said, I don't know why they're having so much trouble finding. I can't think of the guy's name. I go, but I think he's our MC tonight, and got a big laugh. And I was able to go because it was my first time on stage, and I got a laugh, and I was able to just kind of settle down and then do the jokes as I had written them.
Okay, so the first night went pretty well. How many open mics did you do before you had your first bomb?
My first open mic ever went great, and I got into the Seattle Comedy Competition, and I truly did not know it was anything other than an open mic, but apparently it was an audition, and I passed the audition, and the lady came up to me after I got off stage. She said, "We thought you were great. We want you in the competition." And I said, I don't understand." And she said, "Well," I said, "isn't this an open mic?" And she said, "Yes, but it's also an audition for the Seattle Comedy Competition. We thought you were very funny and we want you to be in the competition." And she explained to me what it was, to come back next Tuesday and the competition would start. So my second time on stage, my first time on stage, I was at an open mic. My second time on stage, I was in a competition with 19 professionals. And all of a sudden, I didn't look quite as good to the audience as the previous night. So I had done I did the exact same jokes that I'd done the previous Tuesday, and it did not go as well. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know. I was like, why didn't that? I did the same jokes. What happened? And now I realize they don't always hit the same. And that night, in with those professionals, my amateur status was probably showing very much.
Brad, you mentioned for years writing in those notebooks before you really started going on stage a lot. How much of your writing when you first started translated? How much was, oh, this is only funny in my head? And how much does it just depend on the crowd and the night?
The crowd and the night absolutely make a difference. But I was just telling my kids this a couple of weeks ago, talking about it. I just instinctively knew how to write for stand-up. When I first started writing jokes and writing a monologue, because I'd watched so many stand-ups on TV, I understood the rhythm and the beats of the jokes. And so I got that part right away. So I think that's why I was able to succeed pretty quickly, because I knew how to write instinctively. I wish I could tell you how I learned that. I don't know, just by watching stand-ups, I suppose.
What's the difference of writing a script and writing a monologue for stand-up?
Well, a monologue, you're just trying to be really efficient with your words. Just get out all the dead weight and get to the joke, get to the funny. Where you're writing a script, you can tell a story and have a lot longer to set things up. So I find it hard to tell a story because I want to get to the joke. I want to get to the laugh. I have a lot of laughs per minute in my act. I'm getting better at it as far as being able to tell a story. But yeah, you just have more time when you're writing a script to tell the story.
Brad, being based in Seattle and having the success that you've had for as long as you had, early on as you were going through the process, was there ever any thought to like, oh, I need to be in LA, or I need to get to New York? Or we've heard people like Josh Wolf and Joey Diaz talk about, the Seattle comedy scene in the 90s and how good that was and how much stage time was available at that time, what really helped them, Brody Stevens, grow.
Right.
Was there ever
I
a
know all
thought?
those guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Was there ever thought to go LA or New York, or were you
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
well?
I was thinking about it. And this in 1993, I'd done like 3 television shows, national TV shows, and it was like I had a little bit of heat, and I thought, man, it might be time. And, I was talking to my wife, and she was pregnant at the time with our first child, and we were talking about maybe it's time to move to LA. And then at that point, I had been a volunteer assistant at the University of Washington for 7 years. And the day my son was born, in April of '94, the following morning, my wife was diagnosed with kidney cancer and given a 50% chance to live. And so we got that news while we were holding our 1-day-old baby. And right at that moment, I went, well, my comedy career is over, and there was a job opening at the University of Washington, assistant track job open. And I said, I need to get that job because I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying here. I may not be, my comedy might be done, and I might be a full-time track coach raising an infant child while my wife is dying. Now, she's fine. That was 31 years ago. We had a daughter 3 years later. Everything turned out well. But at that moment, I went, I'm not going anywhere. I am staying here. And then, as we had the kids and we were raising them, I'm like, I don't want to move to LA and take my kids to LA or New York. And I'm doing fine. I was doing fine as a comic here, being based here in Seattle. So I never went. But there was a time when we thought about it, but I never went.
Did you did you take a step back from comedy during that time and take that full-time job, or did you kind of things kind of work out before you had to do make that decision?
Well, I was still, yeah, I took the job. It was a full-time job, and I didn't tell anybody in comedy that I'd taken it because sometimes in comedy, if you tell people I'm taking a full-time job, they think, oh, he's getting out, and I'm going to quit calling and offering him dates. So I didn't tell anybody, but I was still taking dates. I was working all over the Northwest, anything I could drive to, and the University of Washington, the guys I coached with were very nice, good about letting me have some time off. I went out in each summer. What are you doing? Track coach in the summer, you're not doing anything. So I took dates in the summer. And then I would also, sometimes I would, if there was kids that I wanted to recruit around the country, I would book a date like in Denver and go down there for the weekend and then rent a car and go visit a couple of kids in Denver and do some recruiting while I was on the road. So I was able to do that. And yeah, I went from doing probably in the early 90s, I was probably doing, 250 shows a year. And then those 3 years that I was coaching full time, I was probably doing about 90 shows a year. It cut way back. But then in 97, the brand new track coach that came in at the University of Washington, they hired a brand new head coach. And he was also a hurdle specialist. So he said, you've done a great job and I really appreciated everything you've done, but we don't need you anymore. And at the time I was pissed, but it was it worked out great. I went back doing stand up full time. So it was good.
Did the topic of you being a stand-up comedian ever come up in recruiting calls?
Yeah, sometimes I would also I would back then you didn't email or text or
Right.
anything. You actually sent letters and cards, right, to these kids. And I was always writing funny stuff. And they would tell me later, you're different when you recruit. All the other people are real serious and you're not. And I'm like, it's just who I am.
Yeah, now that you mentioned that, track and field is a people take it seriously, sometimes too seriously, sometimes they take themselves too seriously, and sometimes it's just a laugh or a joke at the right moment that can take an athlete from being anxious or overthinking things and kind of calm them down. I would imagine your comedy has probably helped a lot of athletes in that regard. Pre-meet jitters and those sorts of things where you can kind of tell they're, hey, you're maybe overthinking this, you're wasting energy. You probably crack a good joke and make them laugh and settle them
Absolutely. It's
down.
easy. Yeah, absolutely. You can diffuse the situation like that or make it a little lighter and let them know this isn't all that important. I mean, there's more things. Yes, it is important, but it's not the end of the world. So yeah, I've done that a number of times.
Do you have any track specific jokes that you crack?
Not in my act, because I know Greg Warren does a great job
Yeah,
about talking about his wrestling career, but I've never people for me when you start telling them something you do off stage, they think it's a setup and they don't believe you.
right.
They're like, "Where's this going? He was never a hurdler. This doesn't make sense." They don't believe you. So I've never really done any track specific stuff. I've done stuff about tearing my hamstring.
Hmm.
Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were still competed in the hurdles until your 30s, correct?
Yeah, yeah. I just ran unattached. In track and field, once you get out of college, if you're still competing and want to compete, you can run unattached. So I ran unattached until I was 34. Um, a lot of guys that do that are usually distance runners that just keep running a few more years. Every once in a while, you'll get a jumper or hurdler or somebody that wants to keep competing. And I actually got better after I got out of college. I ran faster and more consistent after I got out of college. I PR'd at 30 and I just kept competing. I kept training and competing because that's what I'd been doing. It was my lifestyle. It was weird because when I was on the road with these other comedians, you know, they'd stay up late and drink, and I may too. But the next day, I would find the local track and go run some intervals. And they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I gotta go run some 300s or find a hill that I want to run or some stairs or something." So I just worked out on the road and trained and competed till I was 34.
So you said you PR'd when you were 30, and I'm gonna guess you probably graduated college when you were like 22, 23. So there's some time there. At what point with your comedy, how long were you into your comedy where you felt like you were, for lack of a better term, hitting PRs or kind of finding your groove?
I started in 80 and then I started full time in 86. And it was probably a couple years later because I moved up pretty quick. I didn't realize it at the time, but I kind of moved up the chain pretty quickly. And I've learned since that people that end up being professional or doing well in comedy, they all moved up pretty quick because it's like any other skill. You're just better at it. I mean, there's some people that first time you show them some algebra, they get it right away. They're just better at it. There's guys that throw 100 miles an hour in baseball. They just can. They're better at it. That's the way it is with a lot of athletes. And stand-up's kind of that way. The people that are good at it are usually pretty good at it initially, and they move up pretty quickly.
Do you have a show or a comedian that came into town that next thing you know you're opening for them or you're doing the intro for them and you had to kind of pinch yourself?
Early on, I worked with I was in awe of everybody I worked with at the very beginning. I was absolutely in awe. I got to work with more music acts early on, got to open for more people. I opened for Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton when I was only been doing comedy about 6 years. I opened for John Entwistle from The Who when I was first starting out, Eric Burden. I opened for a bunch of music acts that I was like, you got to be kidding me. This is great.
How did that come about for you?
It was from an agents. They wanted, it used to be more common that comedians opened for music acts and music acts opened for comics. It's not as common anymore. The first comedian I ever saw live in my entire life was George Carlin when I was 15 years old, and he was at the height of his fame. And he had a guy, Kenny Rankin, who was a guitar player, and Kenny Rankin opened for him, and it was really, and I became a Kenny Rankin fan that night. But that used to be more common, and so it's still that's how I worked with Johnny Mathis for 18 years. He just retired in May, but I was with Johnny Mathis for 18 years.
So you bring up opening for George Carlin, who is one of
Oh, I did not open for George
This
Carlin.
was
I
the
just
first one
watched
he
George
saw.
Carlin.
you saw him, my bad.
Right, right.
So he's the Mount Rushmore, and he's not really a clean comic, but I've seen that you are a clean comic. Does that do you have to try to do that, or is that just who you are to begin with?
Well, when I first started, I figured my mom was going to come see me at some point, and I didn't want to piss her off and make her listen to her complain because I knew who she is. She would have just, started telling me how terrible I was. And so when I first started, I just made sure, can I do this in front of my mom? And my mom is 95 years old. She's still alive. So maybe when she kicks, I'll turn blue.
Well, Brad, our mom listens to the podcast, and we do a clean podcast because we've had too many talking tos to watch our language, so
Right, exactly.
we can relate.
And I just said, piss me off. Sorry, mom.
Brad, there's like we were talking about as a coach, cracking some jokes to get some people to relax before their race. But you've competed at a very high level. I'm sure there's some anxiety that maybe comes not now, but the first time performing on stage or the first couple of times performing on stage. Is there a comparison between gearing up or getting into the starting blocks for a big race and having someone, the MC bringing you up to do one of your first sets?
Oh, absolutely. It's just like when you're standing behind the curtain and that you can hear the introduction and that curtain's about to open, you're about to walk out. It feels the same way as when that starter says, runners to your marks. It feels the same way mentally, like, okay, here we are, it's time to go. It's very similar. In fact, I've told people, like 1990, that was my last year. That was my last year competing. And that would have been my 6th year in comedy. But I remember standing there at the starting line right before a race when I was 34 years old. And I remember thinking, I'm more nervous now in my 20th year of hurdling than I am when this gun, I'm standing behind the blocks, sweats off, stand behind your blocks, gentlemen. And I remember thinking, I'm more nervous now than I ever am before a comedy show. And So that I miss that part of it, that buzz, but it's very similar. Uh, as you're walking on stage, is the same feeling as runners to your marks.
And on the flip side of that, you get the same kind of, you know, runner's high, for lack of a better term, after a big PR at a big meet as you
Oh,
come off the stage
absolutely.
after killing it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a race is only 14 and a half seconds, and you may be up there for an hour, but it's very, very similar. Absolutely very similar.
You still get that today too?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it's never, whenever I'm on stage, there's always some point where I go, I get to do this. I get to do this for a living. It's never lost on me how lucky I am.
So, Brad, you mentioned that how lucky you are, and you have to remind yourself from time to time, I get to do this, right? Because it was probably a goal of yours to be a
Right?
comic. And there's not really a conventional way to become a stand-up comedian, right? It's probably a little bit easier nowadays than when you got into it, just because there's open mics everywhere in every state. And there's a lot of podcasts, and because there's a lot of podcasts, there's a lot of people who want to be stand-up comedians. Do you have any advice for a younger comic who kind of wants to get into it? They might have a little stage fright, they might have some writer's block. Any advice you would give someone wanting to get into stand-up?
Yeah, go to an open mic. Don't sign up. Just go and watch, and you'll see some of the most awful comedians you've ever seen in your life, and cringe-worthy comics, and you're like, oh, and you'll sit there and you'll go, I can't. I'm not that bad. And I've told people that just go watch a couple of open mics if you really want to get on stage and try it, and you'll go, oh, I'm not that bad. I can do that.
Have you ever had an athlete that you coach that you got into stand-up?
Yeah, a couple of them. Do you know Bo Johnson? Bo Johnson's all over the internet right now. He's a very funny comic. He was a Shorecrest. That's where I've coached for the last 17 years. He was a Shorecrest track kid. I didn't really push him into it, but I don't know if he knew I was a comic, but yeah, he's doing really well, and he was a Shorecrest kid. And then one of the guys I coached at the University of Washington, the hurdles, Skip Moody he tried stand up for a while in Seattle, but didn't stick with it, I don't think.
So what's it like for you to see an athlete that you coach that's a stand-up now?
Well, it's great. I like it, but when they think, oh, a lot of people think, oh, they meet you and they're talking to you or you're a coach, they think, well, if you can do it, I can probably do it too. In fact, the guy that used to live across the street from me decided he wanted to do comedy, and I just like rolled my eyes, and he says, oh, I can do it. I'm funny. I'm, you're doing it. And so he went and did open mics for about 5 or 6 months and then quit.
You won.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, people, that's the thing about stand up too, is when it looks easy. If you do it well, it looks really easy. That's the beauty of stand up. It looks, well, how hard can that be? He's just up there talking. That's not that hard. Okay, go ahead and give it a shot. That's the beauty of stand up though. If it looks easy.
Same thing in track and field, like
Oh,
the people that
absolutely.
do, it's like poetry in motion. They make it look very fluid and very easy, but all the work and everything that goes into it, there's a lot and it's hard.
Oh, I tell people that all the time. I go, look at those marathoners. And you watch those marathoners, that's considered distance where they're running slow. I go, those world-class distance runners are running 13 miles an hour
Hmm.
for 2 hours. You ever see somebody on the gym, at the gym, they set the thing up to 10 miles an hour and they're just flying. And then everybody in the gym goes, what's this idiot doing sprinting on the treadmill? And they're only running 10 miles an hour. The world-class marathoners are running 13 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And it looks really smooth. And if you're standing on a track, I mean, you guys have been, if you're standing on the track, you're watching a 5,000 meters or a 10,000 meters, those guys are rolling when they go past you. And they're so fluid when they go.
Yeah.
It's the same way I've told people, like at a high jump, you see somebody jumping 7.6 or 7.7 or 7.8 on TV, and it looks cool. But I go, if you ever get a chance, go stand next to the pit when they're jumping 7.8, because you'll go, holy crap, that's high.
I'm sure you've probably seen a lot of high level track and field. Do you have any like top three performances that you've ever seen that stick out?
Yeah, well, I don't know. That's a good question. Really good question. I went to the 76 Olympics in Montreal when I was 20 years old. My best friend and I drove all the way back to Montreal and spent 10 days in Montreal, and we watched all kinds of track and field at the 76 Olympics. So any iconic moments from that, I was there for most of those. Um, I was at the NC2A championships in like 93, 94, 95, 96, 97. I was at all those meets at the Olympic trials in 96. I've seen all kinds of great performances.
Have you been to the new Hayward Field?
I have not. I have not
Okay.
been there. I've been past it. I have not been inside it yet. Our track team, our high school track team, competed down there this year, and it was about 4 weeks after I had my knee surgery, and I was not ready to travel yet.
Okay.
But it's spectacular. I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
Have you
it's
been
good.
in it?
I have not. I've only been in the old facility, but
Yeah, same with me. I've been
I
in the
know
old one a number of times.
when they were first starting to break ground and do all that stuff, it was controversial. A lot of the old heads were a little upset by it, but when you see the state of the art stuff and the Bowerman Tower and all that stuff,
Oh
it
yeah,
is quite impressive
yeah, it's
facility.
remarkable. It's the best track and field facility in the world.
Yeah.
Brett, I'm curious to how your process writing jokes, coming up with jokes, has that changed? You still putting them in a notebook and then going up on stage? How's that
Yeah,
work these
absolutely. I
days?
still write them down. It's harder now for me because I have this level of expectation for myself, and I'm doing, I when I perform now, I do about a 70-minute set each night. So to try 3 new minutes to throw it in somewhere, it's kind of hard for me to do it. I still do it, but I can also get lazy and go, I'll try it tomorrow night. I'll try it tomorrow night. But if I got something new and I think it's working, I'll stumble through it early in my set because I figure if it doesn't go well, I'll dig myself out of it. But yeah, it's still the same process for me.
How do you turn them over? How long do you kind of get that 70 minutes, harness that in for a special or a CD? How much do you try to get new stuff in and put the old stuff out?
Well, it's a good question, because until I exploded on when I went viral and all of a sudden everybody'd seen all my stuff, I went on stage every night for the most part pretty anonymously. People didn't know who they were seeing. They were going to see comedy, and then I'd come out and I had an hour, and it killed every night. And I really got away with doing the same hour, pretty much the same hour, for a number of years because it worked really well. And then all of a sudden, it went viral, and I go, oh crap, I got to write some new stuff. So I did. I started writing new stuff. Most of the stuff from those two specials that are on YouTube, I don't do in my act anymore. I resurrected some old material that was 30 years old. It was still good, but I just didn't do it anymore. I've resurrected some old stuff, and I've written more and I can be pretty prolific when I sit down and make myself do it.
How often are you making yourself sit down and do it?
This week or normally? Um,
Normally, like
for me, it goes in streaks as far as how I create. It just goes in streaks. Sometimes I'll like, oh, that's funny, write that down. And then sometimes I'm like, I haven't thought of anything funny in 10 days. It just goes in streaks.
do you believe in writer's block or is that a myth?
Um, I've never really had it, so I don't know. I absolutely believe it's probably for some people, it's probably a real thing. For me, for a while, I was just lazy. Um, and once everybody's seen all my stuff online, I'm like, oh crap, I got to write some new stuff.
And you mentioned going viral, and I think Rich said at the beginning of the show, it was 2018 when you went viral. So you had already had 30 plus years as a
Yeah, I was
stand-up.
year 34 of my career, and I was in the comedy business. I was known, but the general public didn't know who I was. I had a very successful career in year 34. I was doing great. I was working all the time and making decent money. And then all of a sudden, that dry bar video it got 12 million views in 48 hours, and it had 33 million views in 10 days. And that just changed everything. It just changed everything.
So 34 years in, you were supporting a family. You made a career out of it, and then 12 million views and like that. But it wasn't like you were trying to do that. That just happened because you were putting the time in all the time, and the right people saw it at the right time. You hit the algorithm. What was what was that for you? Was that just, oh, this is payoff? I've been doing this for 34 years. About time.
Well, no one was more surprised than me because that material that blew up, I thought, I've been doing this in my act for 10 years. Why is it so big now? But the right people saw it and then shared it. I was surprised. And to be honest with you, I've told people I'd almost given up in year 34, like nothing's ever going to happen. That's okay. I've had a good career. I've had a wonderful career, but nothing big's ever going to happen. I think when I quit caring, it's all of a sudden when things popped for me, when I went, nothing's going to happen. Then it finally happened. It was very odd. It's still odd to me. Now I'm year 40, 41 or something like that. And I'm surprised I get recognized quite often. And that's always odd to me, very odd to me. I'm grateful for it.
We mentioned before that video, you kind of had a successful career. People came maybe not necessarily to see you, but they were just coming to see comedy. After that, did you see an uptick in now people are coming wanting just to see you specifically?
Yeah, and it was very mentally, it was a big change because for all those up to year 34, I was headlining clubs all over the country. I did a lot of corporate events, which because I work clean and corporate events make money, and I was opening for several acts, and I was working a bunch of cruise ships, which pay well. So I was doing very well up until year 34, but always on stage up until that moment. I knew walking on stage, these people don't know who I am, and I hope to exceed, and I generally exceeded their expectations because I'd come out and I'd kill, and these people, oh, this guy was great. And then all of a sudden, after 34 years, I thought, these people know who I am, and will I meet their expectations? So mentally, it was kind of an adjustment to make, like, oh boy, I hope I don't let them down. Where in the past, I was like, oh, these people are in for a big, big fun. Um, I've gotten past that a little bit, like, okay, these people are here to see me and they're excited to see me. So there's no pressure there because they're giving me the benefit of the doubt. Whereas before, people sit there with their arms crossed going, I hope this guy's good.
Is it like a musical act now when people are coming to see you that know you? Do they want to hear the hits? Like, do they wanting to hear the stuff that they saw on Dry Bar?
Yeah, it's always hard for comedians. It's one of those things we always talk about, like because people see certain bits online and they love them, and then they come and if you don't do them, they're disappointed. And some people go, "Oh, I've already heard all that." So I never know what the answer is. I really never know what the answer is. So when I do my show, I'll give them a couple of greatest hits, but hopefully they hear stuff they haven't heard before. It's
Yeah.
really always a hard question because I know comedians I've worked with for years, and I'm like, I want to see this guy do that bit because I love that bit. I want to see it. And I think sometimes the audience is that way too, but I never know because sometimes I'll get people sending me messages, DMs or something like, oh, I've heard all of that crap. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
I think Jimmy and I fall into that camp a little bit. I think we've walked out of a comedy show or two that we're like, oh, we've heard all of that.
Yeah,
But we've also, there was a time we went to Helium in Philadelphia to see Ari Shafir, and we left that show and we said to each other, I think we were the only two people in that room that knew who he was.
right.
So
Yeah, yeah.
we kind of relate to what you were saying is like people just go out to see comedy as like a Friday night or a Saturday night. That's kind of their night out. Where in Jimmy and I's cases, like we were going specifically to see people because they were in our area, and it was like this is an opportunity. But I guess there's a whole population of people that just go to see comedy regardless of who it is, just to be entertained.
Right, exactly. There's comics, Jim Gaffigan, people go to see Jim Gaffigan, they want to hear him do Hot Pockets, you know what I mean? And oh God, I'm drawing a
Ron
blank.
White tater salad.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just certain things you want to hear out of guys because that's
Yeah.
their hook. What's his name that comes out? The Machine.
Bert
Bert.
Kreischer.
Bert Kreischer. People want to hear that story and they want him to take his shirt off. I mean, if he doesn't do that, they're going to riot. So
Yeah.
there's certain guys that have bits that they have to do them.
Yeah.
Brad, you mentioned doing clubs, you mentioned doing the corporate gigs. Do you have a particular gig or a set that they say, you die a thousand deaths, or you had a heckler, one that kind of just stands out and kind of makes you cringe when you think about it?
You mean a corporate gig or just a bar
Just
gig?
any gig in general that was either a nightmare or you wound up turning around and it was hilarious. Any stories like
Oh,
that?
I got a bunch of stories like that, but probably the worst one I've ever did was in High River, Alberta, and it was a little bar. It was a kind of a sports bar in High River, Alberta, which is I think about an hour south of Calgary. It's the middle of nowhere, and the locals. This bar had just been purchased by an East Indian guy, and so they were all the people in the sports bar were already upset because the old owner had sold it to this Indian guy, and they were all these white racist guys, and they. The show was supposed to start at 8 o'clock, and there was like 12 TVs. It was in a bar, and they all had on the Calgary Flames game. And this Indian guy went around at 8 o'clock, and it was the middle of the second period, and he turned off the game all through the bar because he wanted to start comedy. And we're all like, no, no, let's wait till the game's over. And as soon as he started turning off the TV, every guy in that place, it was near riot, and the owner went on stage, the new owner, which they hated already because he was the new owner of their sports bar and he was making changes. And they're just yelling at him, turn on the game, turn on the game, turn on, what are we doing? And he goes, no, shut up, we're doing comedy. Comedy starts at 8 o'clock. Shut up, we're doing comedy. Shh, no, no hockey, we're doing comedy. The first guy's an American. And he just turned and handed me the mic. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I had to walk on stage and face these guys. I did 30 minutes. It was awful. The stage was it was a picnic table with a piece of plywood on it. And I remember looking up at the spotlight, and the spotlight was a headlight in a Folgers can. And I've told people in comedy, you never know if you're in the big leagues, but you know when you're in the minor leagues. And that night I was like, this is just awful. This is just horrific.
Well, on the flip side of that, do you have some favorite rooms in the United States that you like to perform at?
There's a lot of good clubs I get to work now. You know, I've done the Grand Ole Opry now, I think 18 or 19 times, and that's just I mean, it's iconic. It's the Grand Ole Opry. You walk out and you stand in the circle, you know? I mean, that's everything in the world. And that audience is just always red hot, and it holds 4,400 people, and it's usually close to full. So that's performing at the Opry is an ultimate, but there's a lot of good clubs in this country. And now, like I said, everything's changed because people are buying tickets to see me. So it's much easier now.
Is there a difference in the pre-performance jitters from a 4,000 person room, maybe as opposed to like a 100-person venue?
Not really. Not
No.
really. It's kind of the same. You know, the first time I ever did the Opry, I told my wife, she was with me, and I was pacing around backstage. I go, God, I'm nervous. I haven't been nervous in 30 years. I'm kind of nervous. And that was odd to be that nervous because I hadn't been nervous before. You're a little bit anxious. You want to start, but I was like, God, I hope this goes well. And actually, the first time I did the Opry, I mean, I did like 12 minutes. And this was right after that video had gone viral, right? So everybody knew the bit, and I did that material. And when I walked off, I told my wife, I think that's the best set I've ever had in my life. And since then, I've gotten to go back like 18, 19 times.
Brad, 41 years in, and obviously this is your career, this is what you do, but as an athlete, I'm sure you have goals, you have stuff that you want to achieve. Do you have any goals or any kind of bucket list you want to check off?
That's another good question. I'm doing another special late this year. I'm gonna shoot another special, and it'll probably be on Nate Land or 800 Pound Gorilla, and hopefully maybe Hulu or something like that. And then because it'll be a bunch of good exposure, I'll be able to do a bunch of dates. But I don't want to do a bunch of dates right now. I'm at the point in my life where I'm going to back off a little bit. I've been doing it for 40 years. I am 69 years old. My younger brother passed away last spring from cancer, and my older sister is terminally ill right now. And I think the universe is telling me maybe it's time to start checking some stuff off your bucket list, not comedy wise, just go back and see some things in the world. I told you I worked cruise ships for 24 years. I've been all over the world, and there were all kinds of places that I went to, and I thought, I want to bring my wife back here someday, and it's time to do that. I'm going to keep performing. I'm just not going to do, I'm not going to do 150 shows a year anymore.
Can you care to share any of those other outside of comedy bucket list things you want to do?
Yeah, I want to go. I went to, I went to Estonia and Poland and Sweden on a cruise ship, and I just was like, oh, I want to go back there in the South Pacific, Tahiti, Bora Bora, Fiji, those places. I went to South America. I'd like to go back to all of those places. I'd love to do those. And one of actually, I made in junior college, I ran track with a guy from Senegal. And through the miracle of Facebook, I found him again several years ago, and he has an open invitation to come see him in Senegal. And my wife has no desire to go to Senegal, so I said, I think I'm going to go to Senegal and see my buddy. So that's going to happen sometime soon too.
Well, that's great to hear. I have two things off of that. Jimmy and I are both junior college All-Americans, so the junior college system and what that does for athletes and students is near and dear to our hearts. So now that you've added that to our little conversation here,
Yeah,
I think
same with
that's
me. I
great.
went to Spokane Community College, and at the time, the community colleges here in the state of Washington were really strong. And the Spokane Community College, I am in the that team from 1976 is in the NWAC Hall of Fame, and it was called perhaps the greatest junior college track team ever. I think there were 16 of us that left there and went Division One. I really wish the junior colleges could support, track and field like they used to, because it was such a great stepping stone. So many people that came out of high school and 2 more years of junior college, and then they got to compete and move on to a 4-year school.
Yeah, we've had quite a few junior college coaches, both from wrestling and from cross country and track and field. Actually, not too long ago, had Wes Miller on from South Plains Community College down in Texas. They just won their fifth consecutive men's JUCO national title in track and field outdoors. So
Yeah, there's still
um,
some good track
yeah.
JC track teams in the South. They still exist here in the Northwest, but they are poorly funded and
Hmm.
not enough money to really travel and have a lot of like it was in the 70s. It's too bad.
Yeah. Going back to the cruise ships, Brad, I'm curious, what is that experience like? Are you performing every night, or do you have one night while you're on the cruise and you get to hang out and enjoy
Yeah,
yourself?
it's a pretty good deal. It depends which cruise line and how much you're working. Some of them now they do have you working 7 nights a week, and you do 30 minutes twice, and you can do the same 30 minutes over and over and over because people don't come in and see you more than once. The ones I was working on, you usually had to do two different 45-minute shows. So I'd be on the cruise ship for 7 days, and I only had to work twice. So it was a good deal. And the other 5 days, I'm just a tourist with no responsibilities.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's a good gig. That's absolutely a good gig. But at the same time, you're on a cruise ship by yourself. You know what I mean? It's
Oh,
like,
you don't get to bring your wife?
well, you can, but my wife was raising kids and
True,
she's always
true.
worked full time, so it's hard to do. I've done it a couple of times, but most of the time, 95% of the time, I'm by myself, and you're on a cruise by yourself. And it's like when you work in Vegas, people go, "Oh, you're working in Vegas? That must be fun." I go, "I'm in Vegas by myself." It's the worst place to be by yourself. It's
Yeah.
some comedians will tell you it's like working cruise ships is like being in the nicest prison in the world. Um, because you are in the same way in the cruise ship. The first 2 days, you're anonymous. You're just walking around the ship. Nobody knows who you are. And then you perform, everybody sees you. And the next day, all of a sudden, you're a star, right? And people want to talk to you and stop and tell you their horrible jokes that they think you're going to laugh at. And so you're kind of stuck with them for the rest of the week.
The best of both worlds.
Yes, exactly.
Brad, Going viral, has that changed the way you kind of see, you don't have to get on stage to make material, especially in the world that we live in now with social media. People, they'll hold their phone out in front of them, they'll put some captions over it. Next thing you know, they have a video with 1 million views. Have you kind of tried to dabble in that avenue at all?
No, not really. And my manager keeps telling me he needs more content. He needs more content. And I'm like, do we? They said, you got to post every day. I'm like, that sounds annoying to me.
It is.
But I try to do some of it. I was doing some stuff when I was first rehabbing my knee that was kind of fun, and I quit doing that. But yeah, that's the thing about comedy now. There's some people can get famous from some videos, and they don't even have an act, but they can sell tickets, and people come out and they go, "Oh, I've seen this guy online. He's really funny." And then they come see him live, and he's terrible live because he's not a stand-up. He's just funny on these clips, right?
Brad, do you have any comedians now that you love seeing that if you see that they're going to be in the club by you, you're going to go and see them with your wife?
Oh, there's a lot of them. Greg Warren makes me laugh. I told you that earlier. Greg Warren makes me laugh. There's a lot of them. Brian Reagan makes me laugh, and Jim Gaffigan. And there's some Leanne Morgan, who's a friend of mine. She's a great comic. I've known Leanne for 20 plus years. She's the same way. She blew up older, and now she's a big deal all over the place. Um, but there's a lot of good comics, and you guys, if you're comedy fans, there's a lot of good comedians in this country that people aren't that they don't know their names.
Yeah.
Brad, one last one I have for you, if Rich doesn't have one for you before we get into the final four. Is there anything that we haven't talked about or any advice you would give athletes that, want to go the unconventional route, maybe not a stand up, but just something that, when they tell people, "Oh, I want to be an actor, I want to do theater," they might, What? You're not funny. Like, why would you want to do that? You have any advice for people?"
Yeah, follow that because I just had a really strong voice in my own head, I guess, telling me to try it. You can do this. You can do this. You can do this. I mean, I was teaching school in Pasco in the early 80s. What makes you think you can do stand up? But I really believed I could do it before I did it. And I was right. So if there's somebody that has a dream like that, give it a shot. I mean, when I started doing stand up, the plan was if this doesn't work out, I'm going to go back and teach and coach. That was plan B, and it's still plan B, but I've never had to go back. And that's the same way with anybody else, any athletes that have a different path they might want to take. Do it. Do it. You're an athlete. You've worked hard. You know how to put your head down and grind. Give it a shot. And if not, that's all right. It's the same way with athletics. I tried. I didn't compete. I didn't run as fast as I thought of, but I did try.
Thank you. A
Yeah.
lot of people need to hear that. I know I
Yeah.
need to hear that. So
Yeah.
thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. And I lied. I have one last thing. You said you
Okay.
went to Spokane Community College, and I know that was, I think you said 76, so it was a little before, but were you around when they shot Vision Quest up there?
Yeah, yeah. I knew one of the guys. He was a wrestler from Pasco where I taught. Um, that was my first coaching job in Pasco, and one of the wrestlers in there was from Pasco High. I don't know what his character was, but he was in the movie. I remember that very well. Not a lot of wrestling movies.
No.
No.
Not a lot of track movies. I was in
No.
Prefontaine. Did you
You
see?
were
Yeah, there were two
Where
of
I
them.
saw that your IM
without
Which one?
limits in
in
Prefontaine.
Prefontaine.
Prefontaine. I was in Prefontaine, and the very climactic scene when Pre's driving his car and he flips the car, and he's laying there dying. I run out of the house and I try and save his life, and it's just me and Oscar winner Jared Leto doing the scene together, and I try valiantly to pull the car off of him, but I am not successful, and perhaps I could have saved Pre's life, but I could not get that sports car off of him.
Well, now I got to go back and watch.
Now you got to watch it. I'm in the credits as neighborhood man.
Okay.
Yeah, I brought that across Rich's plate when we were doing research for the podcast, and I'm curious because you said you went to the '76 Olympics. Do you remember when Prefontaine passed away?
Oh, absolutely, because I was at Spokane, and I mean, he was. He was a Northwest icon, obviously, and we'd been in a couple of meets where he'd been, that Pre had been in, because you know how it is. In the Pacific Northwest, you go to a meet and it's WSU, it's Washington, it's Oregon State, it's Spokane Community College, it's Central Washington. You know how meets are, a bunch of people. And I remember when he passed and how devastated, how devastated are all the distance runners were just in awe of him and loved him. And yeah, I remember very clearly. It was a shock.
Yeah. I do have one last one for you, Brad. As a track guy, being in Washington, have you seen the recent, the recent news coming out of Washington State?
Oh, it was awful. It was just horrible. I coached. I went up and worked in the 80s and 90s. I worked at their track camp every year. Spent a week on the campus and coached the hurdlers, and it's just awful, man. It's just terrible. I think of some of the non-rev sports are in trouble right now. I hate what's happening in the NC2A. That was
Yeah.
just awful. WSU has a wonderful history of track and field greatness, and to cut that program like that, I just was heartbroken.
Yeah. I mean, as a distance runner, I've always known, WSU as a distance school, but I know losing the field events like that is takes quite a
Yeah,
few
and that's not
athletes
a
out of
track
there.
team. If you take,
No,
that's not a track team.
not a Power Five school. You know what I mean?
No,
It's not you don't see that. You see that at some of the smaller mid-major schools where they have to focus on distance specifically, but you hate to
right.
see that for an institution as big as Washington State.
Final
Yeah.
four, Rich?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
All right.
Brad,
Final four.
are you a coffee drinker?
I had to quit just recently.
Uh,
Having a little heart trouble. I was having trouble. My heart was racing and trying to get. And they said you need to stop drinking coffee. And I was like, completely? How about 1 cup a day? And then I was down to 1 cup a day. And then no, you got to stop. I'm like, it was awful. That was like April. So I've only been coffee free for about 2 months. So I hate it. I hate it.
Has it
do you
been
feel
hard?
normal?
I like the ritual in the morning of sitting there and drinking the cup of coffee. It doesn't feel right.
Has it been hard?
Yes.
Yeah.
I hated it. I didn't have any withdrawals or because I cut back from 2.5 cups a day to two and then one, and I didn't have any headaches or anything. It wasn't that hard to quit, but I just miss it. And my wife, I make coffee in the morning for her, and I'm like, that smells good.
Well, there's my friend's company. It's called Cafax Body. They make all natural deodorant. They do have a coffee scented deodorant, so maybe you could just check that out. And I notice when I wear it every once in a while, because I'm a physical education teacher, so every once in a while I'll be in the gym and I'll be like, is someone brewing coffee? And then I'll remember that I wore the coffee
Oh yeah,
scented.
yeah, yeah.
Brad, do you have any daily practices or rituals you do on a regular basis to show up as the strongest version of Brad Upton?
That's a good question. I got some little ticks, and my wife laughs at me about them. And she didn't even know I had them till I exposed myself to her one day. Not exposed myself to her. That's the wrong set of words. I told her about my little ticks that I had, and now she notices them. But she had not noticed them. We've been married. We've been together 40, I don't know, 40 some years. She never knew those, but I have some little ticks that I do.
Like
And I'm not telling you. What's that?
like some OCD ticks?
Yeah, a little bit, a little
Okay.
bit. Yep.
Okay. No problem. We
Well,
all have them.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we do.
I was gonna say you're in the circle of trust. I got OCD, so no judgment here.
Yeah.
Brad, what are you listening to right now? Music, podcasts, audiobooks? Are you reading anything?
I have had a subscription for probably since I was in high school to National Geographic. I read that as soon as it shows up every month. I read that thing right away. So I read my National Geographic. Um, I don't listen to. My wife has some good podcasts. She just turned me on to Amy Poehler's new podcast, Good Hang with Amy Poehler. That was great. I love that.
What's your go-to? I know you've opened for some music acts. Do you have a go-to genre or your favorite artist?
I would probably put Steely Dan on the first time if I had to listen to something right there. I love 70s soul music. I listen to that on Sirius XM, the classic 70s soul music. Those are probably my go-to.
Is it? Do you listen to any music before you go on stage?
No, not
No.
really.
Okay. Okay. Brad, last one we got to close it out for you. It's a lighthearted one. Maybe it's a unique food uh, delicacy up there in the Pacific Northwest. Maybe it's a beverage. Maybe it's something we haven't talked about. Do you have a guilty pleasure?
Well, we eat a lot of salmon here in the Pacific Northwest, so
Okay.
we take it for granted. We eat a lot of salmon here. We have all kinds of craft brews that I enjoy. This is a big craft brewing area, but I think Carolinas is too. Am I right?
Yeah, and we spent some time in Colorado. We were in Denver too, so we got a taste of some good stuff there as well. Do you like IPAs? What do you like?
I don't like IPAs. I did when they first started, and they just got hoppier and hoppier and hoppier. And now they're just too bitter to me.
Yeah.
I like a Kolsch. I like those.
Okay.
I like
Okay.
a Belgian White. I like those
Okay.
kind of beers very much.
Okay. We'll get down with that.
In fact, I had a kegerator on my back deck, and that was one of the worst decisions I ever made in my life. My son moved to LA. He had won a kegerator, and he moved to LA. He goes, I got to get rid of this thing. I go, I'll take it. So for 3 years, I had a kegerator on the back deck, and I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. But man, it's terrible. You drink too much beer. I went, I got to get rid of this thing because you think, oh, I'm going to have a beer, and you put it in the frosty mug, and you drink the beer. You go, oh, I'll have another half a beer. And then I'll have another half a beer, and I'll have another half a beer. Pretty soon you've had 4 beers. And
Yeah.
I went, I got to get rid of this thing. I can get rid of it. So I got rid of it.
All right. All right.
Brad, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I think there needs to be more kids need to know that you exist because
Oh, that's nice. I
growing
appreciate that.
growing up, wrestler, runner, like Rich said, we always like stand up, but always kind of feeling out of place. Like how would I pursue this? Like there's no wrestlers or runners that do this. So knowing that there's a track guy out there, hopefully you inspire a kid that likes to crack some jokes, because they need to see that. And also, I want to apologize if this podcast ever got like Chris Farley talking to Paul McCartney, just asking basic comedy questions. But like Rich said, we are fascinated with comedy. So thank you for your time tonight, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I had a good time. Let's do it. We can do it again sometime.
Heck yeah.
Absolutely.
When we get that special up, we'll get you on here to promote it and get it out there for you. And
All
we'll
right.
get you that Airey Bros bump.
Yeah, I appreciate you finding me. I think Jack Hoyt turned you on to me. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Yes.
Yeah. I ran against Jack several times. In fact, I was like, God, Lee, right at the end of my career, and I thought, I'm getting beat by a decathlete. This is terrible.
Ah. Was that the moment where you decided you were going to really
It's one of
lock in
them.
on
I was
comedy?
like, I can't. I only run the 110s, and I'm getting beat by this decathlete. This is not good. But he was a very good high hurdler. But
Yeah.
I was like, God, I shouldn't be getting beat by a decathlete.
That's amazing.
I ran against Dan O'Brien a bunch of times too, because he went to Spokane Community College and then the University of Idaho, and I ran against Dan a bunch of times when he first came to college. I ran against him a bunch of times.
Okay. Yeah, we talked with Coach Hoyt about that because he was I believe he competed at the 92 trials.
Right? Yeah,
That was the
yeah,
whole Dan and Dave
yeah. They were
craze.
competitors. Yep.
Yeah. Well, Brad, we do appreciate your time tonight. And it was an honor and a pleasure to connect with you and chat with you. And we look forward to continuing to follow your comedy, listen to your stuff. We appreciate your entertainment and making us laugh. And yeah, enjoy your summer. Have fun and enjoy checking off some of those bucket list things with your wife and your family.
I appreciate it, Jimmy. Rich, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Brad Upton. Make sure you check all those links in the show notes for his comedy. And make sure you give him a follow on social media. Let him know the Airey Bros sent you. And we do appreciate you tuning in tonight. And we will see you next time.